Hello everyone, in today's video we will discuss about asymmetric key cryptography. So the main point in asymmetric key cryptography here is that now we are using two keys for encryption and decryption purposes, and those are called your public and private key. So here let us suppose A wants to send a message to the receiver B. So let us suppose it wants to send the same message M to B. Now what we will do here is, like in asymmetric key cryptography, we have used only one key for both encryption and decryption of the messages, and both key were available to A and B. Okay, so now what we will do here is, so here the concept is different. Now here for every user, one public and one private key will be there. So let us suppose A is here, so it is having its own private key and public key. Then B is also having one of its private key, we can say, and one of its public key. Okay, so every user is having one private key and one public key. Now we have to encrypt this message M with one of those key, and then in the other end B has to decrypt that message with one of these four keys. Okay, so now before seeing that with which key we can encrypt this message and with which key the B has to decrypt the message, here we have to see two of the important points. One point is that if the message M is encrypted with any of the key, like private key of A or public key of A. Okay, so in the other hand, the message has to decrypt with the key of the same user. Like if it is encrypted with the private key of A, then it can be decrypted only with the private key, public key, the other key. Like if it is encrypted with the private key of A, then it can be decrypted only with the public key of A, or the reverse wise. If the message is encrypted with the public key of A, then it can be only decrypted with the private key of A. Okay, so if any key is encrypted with the private key of any user, then on the other hand it can only be decrypted with the public key of that user only. So if it is encrypted with private key of A, then it will be decrypted with the public key of A. If it is encrypted with the public key of A, then it can be only decrypted with the private key of A. Okay, so one of the important concept here is this one. And the other point is that we are knowing that every user is sender or receiver, or any user is having one of its private and public key. Now this private key of any user and will be available with that user only. Okay, it is not given to any other user, it will be with that user only. And the public key of any user n will be available in the network, or it can be used by any of the user. Okay, so these two are the important thing. That first of all is that private key, if it is encrypted with private key of A, then it will be decrypted with public key of A only. If it is and the vice versa, again for B also, if it is encrypted with private key of B, then it will be decrypted with public key of B only, and vice versa. Okay, and the second important point is that the private key of any user will be with that user only, and the public key of that user or any user is available in the network, or it can be accessed by any of the user. Okay, now how we will do is, so let us suppose we are encrypting this message M with the private key of A. Okay, we are encrypting this with the private key of A and now sending it to the receiver B. Now at the receiver end, this message will be decrypted with the, now we can say here it is, because it is encrypted with private key of A, so it can be decrypted only with the public key of A. Now you can see here is public key of A will be available not only to B but to CDN in the network, to every user in the network. So now this message can get decrypted by any of the other users. So in this way our message is not secure, because it can be decrypted with any other user also. So this way is not correct, because any other user can also see our message. Now if we use, instead of private key of A, if I use the public key, now if I use the public key of A, now it can be decrypted with the private key of A. Now it can be decrypted only with the private key of A, but the private key of A is only available to A. It will not be available to B, because private key of any user is with themselves only. So now it is not having the private key of A, so it cannot decrypt this message. So with these two keys, so we cannot encrypt our message. Now we can see with these two keys. So let us suppose if I encrypt this message with the public key of B. Okay, now if I encrypt this message with the public key of B, now this message, so let us suppose now if I encrypt with this message with the private key of B, now this message can be decrypted with the public key of B. Okay, so now if I encrypt this message with the private key of B, it will be encrypted with the public key of B, but this public key of B will be available to all the users, so any third party user can also decrypt it easily. Now our last option is our public key of B. Okay, now if I encrypt this message with the public key of B, now what will happen, it will be decrypted with the private key of B. Okay, private key of B. Now we can see if I encrypt this message with public key of B, and it will be decrypted with private key of B only, and this private key of B is available with the B only. Okay, now we can see here, now our message is secure because this private key of B is available with B only, and no other user can access its private key. So now only receiver B can decrypt it and see the message. Okay, so now what we have seen here is that what we will do is we were having 4 key, but finally we are encrypting this message with the public key of B, Okay, this message is encrypted with the public key of B, this message M, and it is sent to the sender B. Now in the receiver it is sent to the receiver B, and in the other end, now what it will do is the receiver will, now it toward this message C, because this C was sent here. So now this B will decrypt this message with the private key, its private key of B, and it will get the message M. Okay, now because this is a little complicated task, because 2 keys are used and it has to encrypt and decrypt with the 2 different keys. So now we can say here, this third point here is, this is much more secure technique comparatively to the symmetric key. So this is a much more secure technique. And the fourth point here is that the algorithms which use this asymmetric key cryptography are RSA algorithm. These all algorithms we will discuss in detail. This is a very important algorithm, one of the RSA algorithm, in which it uses 2 keys, public and private key, like the same we have discussed for encryption and decryption technique. And the fifth point is that that if we are having n users or device connected in the network, then how many keys will be used. Okay, then how many keys will be, like in the previous lecture we have seen in the symmetric key cryptography also. So now here the if you are having n user, then 2n keys are used. Like if you were having 2 users, so 2n means 2 into 2 equals to 4 keys was used. 1 public private. In the same way, if we are having 3 users, so 3 into 2 equals to 6, so 6 keys will be used here, because every user is having its public and private key. So this is also asked in your competitive exam sometime, that how many keys will be used if n devices or users are connected. This is also asked that RSA algorithm uses symmetric or asymmetric key cryptography. So this is also important, you have to remember it, that this is using your asymmetric key cryptography. So, and 2 keys are used here, public and private. And like the previous symmetric key cryptography was called your private or secret key cryptography. Now here the asymmetric key cryptography is called your public key cryptography. So this was all about asymmetric key cryptography. Thank you.